VeChain, the crypto that's tackling the supply chain problem head on. You clicked on this video because you want to understand VeChain, VT in plain English, what it is, how it works, and whether it's actually solving real-world problems. Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into VeChain, the blockchain project that's helping Walmart China track food, BMW log car data, and even LVMH authenticate luxury goods. By the end of this lesson and discovery journey, you'll know exactly why VeChain is laser-focused on businesses, not just crypto traders, how its unusual two-token system works, and what its success or failure could mean for you as a new crypto investor. And we're doing it all without the hype, just a calm, clear explanation with a few surprising discoveries along the way. So let's get started. Open loop. And stick around, because later we'll tackle the big question. Does VeChain's enterprise-first strategy actually hurt its token's value? What is VeChain really? Imagine walking into a store, picking up a product, say a bottle of fine wine or a pack of organic mangoes, and being able to scan a code and instantly see where it came from, how it traveled, and whether it's authentic. That's the kind of transparency VeChain aims to make possible. In plain English, VeChain is a Layer 1 blockchain platform built for business supply chains. It's like a digital ledger for products using chips and sensors, like RFID tags and QR codes, to upload information about goods onto a tamper-proof blockchain. Why? So that every player, from manufacturers and shippers to retailers and even us consumers, can verify the history and authenticity of an item in real time. At its core, VeChain's goal is to bring truth and trust to supply chains. Right now, supply chains are often murky and disjointed. Companies use their own databases, think Oracle, SAP, and those don't always talk well with others. Mistakes or fraud can slip in. Ever hear about counterfeit luxury bags, spoiled food, or parts being swapped out? VeChain's founders certainly did. In fact, Sunny Lu, VeChain's co-founder, was the CIO of Louis Vuitton China, where he saw firsthand how fake products and complex supply lines can hurt a brand. He started VeChain in 2015 with a vision to fix this by bridging real-world commerce with the transparency of blockchain. So how does it work? Let's break it down step by step, nice and simple. VeChain's network is called VeChain. It's a public blockchain, meaning anyone can technically use it, but with a twist we'll discuss soon. Companies attach smart chips or codes to their products. As an item moves through each stage, from factory to warehouse to store, those chips update the blockchain with new data. Timestamps, locations, temperatures, ownership, whatever's relevant. Once added, that data becomes immutable. No one can secretly alter it to cover up a mistake or swap a real product with a fake. For example, Walmart China uses VeChain to track food safety, scanning meat and vegetables at each checkpoint. If there's contamination, they can pinpoint exactly which farm or batch it came from in seconds instead of days. Consumers can even scan the package's QR code in the store to verify it themselves. That's powerful. It builds trust because you're not just taking the company's word for it. You can see the verified history on the blockchain. The real-world problem VeChain solves. It's tackling what you might call the trust gap in supply chains. Let's use a quick story to illustrate. Imagine you buy a luxury handbag and you paid top dollar. How do you know it's not a clever counterfeit? Maybe there was a product laundering scheme where genuine bags fell off the truck and got sold under a fake brand. Or take the food industry. A supermarket recalls spinach because of E. coli, but traditional systems take ages to trace which farm it came from. Meanwhile, people get sick. VeChain's solution is to put everyone, the farm, the distributor, the store, on the same secure database, the blockchain. So the info flows transparently and can't be faked. Right now, a lot of this tracking is done by siloed enterprise software. Big companies use Oracle or SAP to manage inventory and supply data internally. But those are centralized, essentially fancy private databases. They work, but they rely on trust at each handoff. One supplier's record might say, "I sent 100 units." The next guy's says, "We only got 90." Who's telling the truth? With VeChain, both parties write to a shared ledger that they cannot alter after the fact. It's like a shared truth machine that everyone agrees on. Oracle and SAP systems are powerful but can be opaque and prone to errors that only show up later. VeChain provides real-time auditability. Any authorized stakeholder can verify data at will, and discrepancies stand out like a sore thumb. In short, it shifts trust from each other to trust in the system. Attention reset. Now you might be wondering, if VeChain is so great for supply chain transparency, why aren't regular folks using it to track things themselves? Why focus on businesses? That's a key piece of the puzzle, and the answer might shift how you see this project. Why VeChain caters to enterprises, not retail users. From day one, VeChain took an enterprise-first approach. In the crypto world, that's a bit unusual. Many projects chase mass adoption by retail users or developers. VeChain said, "Nope, our main customers are companies." Why? Because the supply chain problems we described are business problems at their core. A random person like you or me can't single-handedly make a supply chain transparent. We're not in control of those goods. But a corporation like Walmart or BMW can implement VeChain's tech across their operations to give end consumers, like us, a better product experience. VeChain basically decided to sell the pickaxes in a gold rush, provide the tools to big players who then deliver value to consumers. Another factor: enterprises have the resources and motivation to use blockchain for things like anti-counterfeiting, compliance, and efficiency gains. They care less if it's decentralized in the purest sense, and more that it's reliable, secure, and fits their needs. So VeChain has tailored itself to be enterprise-friendly, meaning stable costs, regulatory compliance, and partnership support. And they even built things like Toolchain, a kind of blockchain, as a service that companies can plug into without needing deep crypto expertise. If VeChain targeted retail users directly, it'd be a whole different ballgame. They'd need dApps people use daily, like wallets or DeFi or games. But instead, VeChain stays mostly behind the scenes, powering things that the end user might not even realize are blockchain. To a new crypto investor, that can be weird because you might not see a flashy app. But behind the scenes, VeChain could be tracking your wine bottle or verifying your car's repair history. So the upside is, if they win enterprise adoption, it can scale to millions of products without every consumer even knowing blockchain is involved. The downside is not driven by retail speculation or hype cycles as much. Adoption might be slower and more dependent on forging B2B partnerships. Now, something that sets VeChain apart from both traditional enterprise software and most cryptos is its unique dual token model. If you've looked at VeChain, you've probably seen two tokens mentioned, VET and VTHO, often pronounced VET and VTHOR. That's not just to confuse people, it's actually a deliberate design to make businesses comfortable using the network. VeChain's dual token model, VET and VTHO. In VeChain's ecosystem, VET is the main token. Think of it like the stake or value token, and VTHO, VeChain Thought Energy, is a separate token used to pay transaction fees. This is similar to how NEO/gas or Theta T fuel works if you've heard of those. But why have two tokens? The goal is to keep the cost of using the blockchain stable and predictable for businesses. Imagine you're a company wanting to put thousands of transactions on a blockchain every day, tracking goods, updating records, etc. If you did that on Ethereum, you'd be paying in ETH and the fees could swing wildly with the market. One day it costs you $100, the next week $1,000. Not ideal for planning a business. VeChain solves this by decoupling the volatile value of the coin, VET, from the gas fees. VET is like the engine, and by holding VET, you generate VTHO automatically over time. VTHO is what you actually spend to use the network, and importantly, VeChain's design lets them adjust how much VTHO is needed per transaction, or how fast VTHO is generated, to keep fees stable. In other words, if VET's price shoots up or drops, the VeChain Foundation can tweak parameters so that, say, writing a piece of data to the blockchain still costs about, for example, a fraction of a cent in VTHO. For enterprises, this is huge. Cost predictability. They don't have to worry that a surge in crypto market speculation will suddenly make their supply chain system economically unviable. They can budget blockchain costs almost like they budget cloud server costs. Meanwhile, VET holders, including possibly investors like us, have an incentive. By holding VET, you earn VTHO passively. It's kind of like earning interest or dividends in the form of the gas token. So if VeChain usage grows, demand for VTHO could grow, since it's burned when used, potentially making VET more valuable because it's needed to generate new VTHO. That's the theory of value capture, though as we'll discuss, it doesn't always perfectly pan out in reality. In simple terms, VeChain's dual token model works like this. VET is the ownership and governance token, and VTHO is the fuel used to run transactions. Holding VET generates VTHO, which can be used or sold. Enterprises can either hold VET to produce their own VTHO or just buy VTHO as needed. The goal is to keep transaction costs stable and predictable, so businesses can use the blockchain without worrying about crypto volatility. That design is a big reason VeChain is considered enterprise-ready. Now, where is VeChain actually used? It started with luxury goods and food safety, but it's expanded into agriculture, automotive, healthcare, government services, and sustainability. Common themes are authenticity, traceability, and auditability. Examples include tracking luxury goods to fight counterfeits, food traceability systems like Walmart China, automotive pilots for recording vehicle history, healthcare use cases such as clinical trial tracking and COVID certificates, and a growing focus on carbon tracking and ESG reporting. In sustainability especially, VeChain has real traction, with millions of on-chain actions already recorded through platforms like VBetter. What ties all these use cases together is trust across multiple parties. VeChain works best when different companies, regulators, or consumers all need to rely on the same data without one entity controlling it. Compared to traditional enterprise systems like SAP or Oracle, VeChain isn't a replacement. It's more of a verification layer. Companies still use their internal software, but anchor critical data to VeChain so it can't be altered later. Think of it as a shared, always-on auditor that anyone can verify. That public verifiability is what sets VeChain apart from private enterprise blockchains. It's not just about efficiency. It's about creating trust between parties that don't fully trust each other, which is exactly where blockchain actually makes sense. VeChain versus other blockchain platforms, Ethereum, Hyperledger, etc. When comparing to Ethereum, the first difference is philosophical. Ethereum is like a global open playground, fully decentralized general purpose, with thousands of developers and dApps, finance, gaming, whatever. VeChain is purpose-built for enterprise and supply chain. It sacrificed some decentralization for efficiency and control. For instance, Ethereum, even now with proof of stake, has thousands of validators worldwide anyone can join. VeChain uses proof of authority, POA, with just 101 validators, authority masternodes that are vetted and approved leewayhertz.com/ledger.com. Ethereum aims to be censorship resistant and uncontrolled. VeChain basically says some centralization is okay if it makes businesses comfortable. In practice, this means VeChain transactions are cheaper, usually fractions of a cent Messari.io, and more predictable than Ethereum's, and throughput is higher since a limited set of nodes can coordinate faster than thousands can ledger.com. It's also less volatile fee-wise due to the dual token, whereas Ethereum gas prices fluctuate with network demand. On the downside, VeChain is far more centralized. Critics sometimes joke it's just a fancy private database. In fact, one Reddit comment put it starkly, VeChain is a centralized database that leeches off the innovation of Ethereum and is unlikely to accrue monetary premium. That's an opinion, of course, but it reflects the skepticism. Since anyone can build supply chain solutions on Ethereum, or other chains too, and since VeChain isn't decentralized enough for the purists, will it really hold long-term value? We'll touch more on that in Risk. A useful comparison is Hyperledger Fabric, the enterprise blockchain backed by IBM. Hyperledger is fully permissioned and private, with no token. That gives companies control and privacy, but it also means limited public verifiability. If data lives on Hyperledger, outsiders like customers or regulators can't independently verify it unless they're granted access. VeChain sits in between. It's a public blockchain, so data can be verified openly, but its validators are permissioned and known entities. That hybrid approach offers more transparency than private chains, while still giving enterprises the comfort of identifiable infrastructure operators. You can think of VeChain as a middle ground between Ethereum's open decentralization and Hyperledger's closed consortium model. On the technical side, VeChain uses proof of authority. Instead of thousands of anonymous validators, it relies on a fixed set of vetted authority nodes that produce blocks. This makes the network faster, cheaper, and more predictable than fully decentralized chains. With its upgraded POA 2.0 design, VeChain added randomness and faster finality to improve security while keeping efficiency high. It's not aiming for maximal decentralization, but for reliability, performance, and compliance, which aligns with its enterprise focus. Beyond consensus, VeChain includes several built-in features designed for enterprise use. One of the most important is fee delegation, which lets a company pay transaction fees on behalf of users. That means end users don't need to hold crypto just to interact with an app. VeChain also supports batching multiple actions into a single transaction, plus things like transaction dependencies and expiration rules. These features reduce friction and make applications more predictable and easier to manage at scale. All of this reflects VeChain's core philosophy. It prioritizes practicality and compliance over maximum decentralization. Validators are known, vetted entities rather than anonymous operators, which makes enterprises and regulators more comfortable using the network. That design choice brings clear trade-offs, but it's intentional. The upside of this approach is that VeChain is business-friendly. Known validators and coordinated governance make it easier to meet regulatory requirements and roll out upgrades quickly when enterprises need changes. And the network is also efficient and low cost, with fast finality and highly predictable fees, which is essential for high-volume or IoT-style use cases. Another strength is focus. VeChain has concentrated on supply chain transparency and data verification, rather than trying to be everything at once. That focus helped it build real partnerships and practical deployments instead of just chasing hype. Finally, the dual token model and fee delegation make onboarding easier for companies, since they can use the blockchain without directly managing volatile crypto assets. In short, VeChain trades some decentralization for usability, stability, and enterprise adoption. Whether that trade-off is acceptable depends on what you think will ultimately matter more for long-term value. Now let's talk about the trade-offs. First, centralization. VeChain is not a purist's idea of decentralization. You're trusting the VeChain Foundation and a limited set of authority masternodes to run the network. That makes the chain fast and predictable, which enterprises like, but it also means governance power is concentrated. If leadership made poor decisions or came under external pressure, regular token holders have less influence than they would on networks like Bitcoin or Ethereum. For businesses, that's a feature. For decentralization maximalists, it's a clear downside. Second, perception and community. VeChain doesn't have the loud retail crowd or massive developer mindshare you see on Ethereum or Solana. Many of its applications are behind the scenes, not consumer-facing, so it stays under the radar. That can slow innovation and limit excitement around the token, even if the technology itself is solid. The ecosystem is growing, but it's still very enterprise-driven. Third, tokenomics and value capture. VeChain's design prioritizes stable, low fees for businesses, which is great for adoption but not automatically great for VET holders. Even with high usage, token value only grows if that activity meaningfully increases VTHO burn and demand for holding or staking VET. The team is adjusting the model to strengthen that link, but it remains one of the biggest open questions for investors. Finally, competition. VeChain was early, but it's not alone. Ethereum, Layer 2s, private enterprise chains, and other supply chain-focused projects are all competing for the same space. VeChain has real partners and a working network, but it has to keep evolving to stay relevant. On the governance side, VeChain is a mature project. It's been around since 2015, launched mainnet in 2018, and has survived multiple market cycles. Leadership has been consistent, and decisions are guided by a foundation and a steering committee rather than a single individual. It's not fully decentralized, but it's not a one-man show either. Looking ahead, VeChain is actively trying to reduce some of these trade-offs. Through its VeChain Renaissance roadmap, the project plans to move toward a more open, stake-based consensus model and broaden participation, while still keeping the enterprise focus. That evolution is important because staying too permissioned could limit long-term growth. VeChain's leadership, especially Sunny Liu and the core team, has stayed closely connected to enterprise and institutional partners. They've been involved in major supply chain and traceability initiatives in Asia, worked closely with DNV to the point where a DNV executive once chaired VeChain's steering committee, and more recently partnered with Boston Consulting Group. BCG is actively using VeChain technology in its VBETA sustainability platform, which is a strong signal of real corporate credibility, not just a logo partnership. On the ecosystem side, VeChain has also run hackathons and grant programs, and while it's enterprise-focused, it does support DeFi and NFTs, including past UFC NFT releases. In terms of maturity, VeChain has survived multiple market crashes and is still building. It hasn't rebranded to escape failure or disappeared during downturns. Aside from a 2019 insider theft incident that the foundation addressed publicly, it's avoided major controversy. The fact that it's still forming partnerships in 2023 and 2024, including government and consulting firm collaborations, suggests it has lasting credibility. The team is also slowly pushing toward more decentralization, which could bring greater community involvement over time. If VeChain succeeds, it likely does so quietly. You wouldn't be using VET day to day. Instead, success would mean companies and governments using VeChain behind the scenes for product verification, supply chain tracking, or sustainability reporting. That would drive steady network usage, ongoing VTHO burning, and long-term demand for VET from organizations that rely on the network and want governance influence. Failure would look less dramatic, but just as real. Enterprise blockchain adoption could stall, competitors like private systems or Ethereum-based solutions could win out, or regional dynamics, especially in China, could shift against VeChain. In that case, VeChain might remain operational but fade into niche relevance, with limited token demand. The most realistic outcome may be somewhere in between. VeChain succeeds in specific industries, but never becomes a global standard. That would likely mean slow, steady growth rather than explosive upside. What's clear is that VeChain isn't chasing hype. It's betting that solving real business problems creates lasting value, even if it takes longer and looks less exciting than typical crypto narratives.